Board games, we're talking about the soul of a board game, but we're not gonna shout. Today I had a conversation with the person in this position, and that person's name is Jess. It was a reality, it was not just a test. We decided that this conversation needed a second part to explore what is a real game's heart, and we'll talk about the spark and exploration and finding the soul of a game in various situations, and we will continue from where we left off yesterday, and we talk about the design of games that you'll hopefully enjoy and play, and board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez, and this is...
Jess! Hello! I'm Jess.
Yes, you are. I wasn't sure if that was too much kind of throwing you in there without warning, but you rose to the challenge.
Hang on, I've got to go the other way, haven't I? That's the way that I throw things to you, isn't it? Not that way. Oh, you've twisted around. I'm all confused. Where are we on a map?
High five.
That way. Hang on. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, high five.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Perfect.
So yes, it is 10 a.m. UK time for another Betty Beats and Board Game Bledder. This is episode 544, still searching for the soul of a game. And I'm going to carry on chatting every 10 a.m. UK time, probably until at least episode 600, probably until and beyond, because what I'm planning is episode 600 will happen, but it won't be a super long, like 24-hour show. It'll be a more manageable, like maybe 8 hours. Still pretty gosh darn long, but, something that I can actually go to bed and then wake up the next day and, carry on with stuff. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
It's
because
not
some
like
of them
a thing that will knock me out for like a week. It's just something that will kind of make me a bit tired by the end. Anyway, so yes, yesterday, I think that the key parts, just to catch people up who didn't listen or watch that, it was that the soul of a game can be derived when you first make it, through the spark, through the inspiration. It can also be something that you discover through the exploration. And but constantly we need to be reassessing what is the soul, what can we not take out, because talking about Gilhova, the infamous auction mechanism where they took it out of 3 different games. But yeah, that's basically what we're getting into. And is there anything else that people need to know about the main topic before we start, Jess?
I don't think so. That was basically it. That was where we got to. But we'd asked so many more questions, and we had more questions about actually, how do you define a soul? How do you talk about it? It was plus, how do you come to it? And it's not just one person, it's multiple people. So that raises questions about who finds the soul. Do you as the designer find the soul of the game? Do other people find it? How do you come to it?
And like any artistic medium, it is partially about the person making the thing. It's partially about the people experiencing the thing. And we talked about a film director who just has their vision and then they don't even want to talk to actors. But then we talked about, like, that feels really egocentric, possibly. And it feels like you've got to divorce the ego and say, yes, everyone's going to have some ideas. Some of them will be good, some of them won't be. But frankly, you need to be a strong enough personality to say, I'm going to listen to this, I'm not going to listen to that. Anyway, and that is catching up. And hello, Yoda. It is lovely to have you with us. Thank you for joining in. And if you have anything to say regarding this, then please go ahead. But as always, we'll start off with some recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, a couple of very recent highlights for me this morning. I'm going to show, let me make myself bigger. I do apologize for dominating the screen. But the top letters, the reason that are thicker is because I start off with a bold pen and then I go around the outside with a fine pen to just get those extra little flicks and get the sharper ends. And I'm going to do the same with the capitals, and then this typeface will be ready, in my opinion. And also, I drew a couple of lovely pictures for Wee Whimsical Creatures, and for this one, it's going to be exclusive to Aircon 2022. Still trying to remember which year it is, for at least 1 year. So potentially, like in a year in the future or 2 years in the future, I might compile all these exclusives and put them into a booster pack. But if you can't go to the convention, there will be a chance at some vague point in the future to get them. But for now, the only way to get these is either by buying the game at the convention, having bought the game before and showing it to me, or playing the game until you win it. And either one of those, yes, obviously it's marketing for me. I get either a sale or people bringing the game, in which case, fingers crossed, they might even play it with someone else at the convention, or people at the stands, which is always nice, have filling up the tables until they win and saying, yay, the winner gets this. And each game, if there's multiple winners, they'll all get it. So I'm going to print quite a few of them. I'm not sure how many, but I definitely feel it should be hundreds, but I'm not sure how many.
Yeah, I mean, how many copies have you sold of Wee Whimsical Creatures so far?
In total, about 750. But I'm not expecting everyone who bought it to come along to Aircon.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
like, it might be worth me doing a wee poll right after this, an announcement in the Aircon community to say, hey, I'm taking this. It's just going to be until stocks last. I am going to print so that it will be hopefully finished before. Whoa, Dutch Yoda is coming to Aircon, really?
Whoa!
I mean, that's quite astonishing to me because, Dutch Yoda, or as we might say, Netherlander Yoda. So they are coming. And hello, Alex. It is lovely to see you. So Alex is coming to Aircon. And yeah, I need to have a vague idea of how many people are going to go to Aircon. And like I say, for those people who don't go, if they back the Kickstarter, there'll be like a little print and play thing that I'll compile them into print and play. Like, the physical cards will be exclusive, if you know what I mean. The images, other people who paid me money in the past can get it. That's what I want to do for those early backers. Just keep on giving, and hopefully,
more stuff.
Yeah, but yes, if I could have sold, I mean, if I hope to sell 100 copies, then and maybe 100, maybe I take 200. I don't know. And I'll think about it. But yes,
sounds great. Great idea. Yeah, am I Bez now? That's two. Hello, Bezes.
Two dresses.
Two Jess. There we go.
And
why not?
Two dresses. But yes, that is my recent highlight. I'm trying to remember what. Oh yeah, and yesterday I did a few quick things. Was it yesterday or the day? No, Tuesday. I can't remember doing much. I'm sure I did something. I feel
yesterday you went down to do Seize the Power. Was that what you were going to do?
I was going to do that, but then Tiz got COVID, and so we're going to. Tiz has been in close proximity with someone who got COVID, so we delayed that by 2 weeks, which is slightly sad. But I did have a lovely oven meal, which was reduced in price on Monday, so I had that. So yes, that was fine. And I probably wore red things. But yeah, Jess, and also Jess and Alex and Yoda, what were you up to? What were you doing? Let me know.
Ooh. Okay, shall I go then? So what was I doing? Earlier, I have been mainly taking pictures of Library Labyrinth, which
Ooh.
involves an awful lot of, so this is just a prototype. So so it's not perfect, and we haven't got all of the artwork yet. I mean, that's kind of the point of doing the Kickstarter, that actually a lot of the artwork still needs to be done. But it was putting lots of sheets of white paper and overlaying it and things, because I tried doing one where I was just taking pictures of the individual bits, and that just looked a bit funny. The shadows weren't quite right. They weren't quite the same color. So I'd kind of stitched the bits together in Procreate rather than Photoshop here, because I've got that and it's easy. So yeah, it was but it was fun. I enjoy doing those sort of things. I enjoy taking pictures and seeing if they can work. So that was my recent highlight, taking a picture and making it work.
That does sound awesome, and like when you're doing these pictures, obviously you can just focus on showing off the cards that do have the artwork and
Absolutely.
making sure that you show what you want. Because even when I take a picture of Yogi, like I've done some promotional shots to say, hey, look, I got this. And with those, it's like I always make sure to put the cards that I like the best in the center, and then the ones that I don't like so much far off in the distance. And yeah, let's see, other people. Yoda has been doing work and chores. Jess is coming to the UK soon. Maybe you could come to Aircon. I don't know if it fits your plans, but what date is it? Like the 10th to the 14th, something like that?
It's the 10th, I think, is the Thursday. So
10th
I
is
think
the Thursday, so we'll be there setting up, but other people, some people will be there on the 10th and going to the pub and playing games, even though officially the convention starts on the Friday morning. But even if you're just a punter, it's worth going on the 10th. Up until the 13th is the Saturday, 13th is the Sunday. I will personally be there Thursday until Monday. But yeah.
Actually, I think Sunday, we're coming back on Sunday night. We are probably relatively late. But yeah, we're going to be there. We're going to be there on Thursday. And it'll be fun. We'll be setting out things. We'll be working out where our big banners go. All of the excitement.
So, Alex is finally out of isolation. Congratulations. But unfortunately, that means that Alex is back at work. So it's a semi-highlight. Jess has a public holiday off work today. Friends on a white beach. But Jess is stuck at home grading essays. Forever.
Oh, does that mean like a really, really sandy beach where you've got like really blue sea and like, that sand that's so
I think white
bright.
beach, it just means that the sand is so pure that it actually looks white because it's just so clean.
Wow. Don't think I've ever been to a beach like that. Wow. I'm jealous now.
And Jess is coming in April, so a little bit late for Aircon. But is there something else? No, there's nothing in the UK in April in my calendar, sadly. But yes, it will be lovely to see you. And Aircon is not in London, it is in Harrogate.
Which is nice and has lovely tea and cakes.
You go to Harrogate for cakes. Need white sand, turquoise water, and the Jess says that the Jess Metheringham visits.
Jess trip. Hostages. Ooh. Exciting.
So, talking about the sea. I mean, I don't think I've talked about the sea before as a brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? I mean, it's just a big repository of water. It's kind of like a big hole. I mean, like it, or you could say that we are in big mountains where there's land and we poke out of the sea. Because really, if everything were perfectly level, there'd just be a big sea literally everywhere, and we would all be underwater. And so it's pretty cool that you've got the dips and like things like the Marinara Trench that hold so much water so that the water doesn't come out. I do think that the sea is wonderful with all these animals swimming around. It's a place where you can explore, you can go diving. it allows ships to move more efficiently than if they were doing so on land. That's pretty cool. And I think we've got to take care of the sea. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we're dumping in, but let's be a little bit more conscious. And this goes back to, my environmental awareness for the day. Like, someone wrote a thing on Twitter saying people feel like if there's no shrink wrap, it's somehow inferior. It's not a proper game. It's not brand new. And we need to move out of this mindset. We need to move away as humans from feeling the need constantly to have everything shrink wrapped. But yes, why do you think the sea is brilliant, Jess? Or anyone else?
I love the sea. So I grew up not that far from the sea, so I lived in West Sussex for most of my childhood, and I remember sixth form in particular. So when I was, so that's when you're 16 to 18. Those last couple of years of school when you're preparing for university. I was like, the sixth form college that I went to was really close to the sea, so obviously we used to hang out on the beach a lot. But this being Worthing, it was a pebbly grey beach. It was still really nice to hang out on, but it was very much a British beach. It was bracing. That's what it was. It was very bracing down there, which means it was cold.
Even there, you get, like, the relaxation of the waves coming in, the flow. Like, I think waves, like, specifically,
waves
are also
brilliant.
a brilliant thing.
Now, there's something you don't know, Bez, which is that I am busy creating a game called Plastic Currents. So I have a game on a card already, but I'm actually making that into a bigger game, a proper worker placement game, which is about taking plastic from the sea.
Can you give us the quick 30-second pitch? Player count, time, sort of what you're doing on a typical turn?
Most of those haven't quite been worked out yet, but it's going to be
what are you aiming for? What are you hoping for? We won't keep you to it.
A cooperative worker placement game where you have, where basically there's a bay, which is bits of sea. There's bits around the outside, which are, the beach, and plastic comes in every turn. Sometimes it gets blown off the beach. Sometimes it gets, in fact, this is a great example of a game where I think the soul of the game, or the thing I thought of first, is actually the way that the plastic gets pushed round the sea, round the bay. Because originally I had a game on a greetings card, so it was 9 squares, which you played with jelly beans. So you put the jelly beans on the greetings card, and then you rolled one die, a single die, to see where they would go next. And you had to remove the jelly beans, but you could only remove them from 2 squares next to each other at any point.
Presumably get everyone to wash their hands before, so that or get the person who's placing them to place them quite carefully, so that you don't mind picking them up and eating them yourself after.
So the card game was a solo game. So all the jelly beans are yours. But I would always recommend that you wash your hands before handling jelly beans. But of course, you got to eat the jelly beans afterwards. And I was like, yes, this is going to be a thing. The worker place, the cooperative.
Wash your hands before you play the game. It's not every game
Wash
you can
your
say
hands
that about.
before jelly beans. But the cooperative worker placement game, I think, will probably not use jelly beans, unfortunately.
I think that cooperative worker placement is really interesting, because worker placement, typically, it's all about blocking other people and working out what's the most efficient. So I'm really interested to see if you can keep any of the things that make worker placement feel like worker placement whilst also having it be cooperative. I guess at that portion, it's kind of like apportioning, like saying, okay, I want this, but who needs this the most? Okay, you want this, so we'll leave this for you. But that does sound fantastic, and conventions are such a busy time, but if only you were staying, until Monday, then I could have said, Sunday we'll definitely have time. That's the nice thing about staying until Monday, because last year we stayed and it's like half a day to relax, do you know what I mean? But if it's short enough, then potentially one evening if you're taking it. It would be interesting to play. But
Absolutely.
going back to the sea, Jess says, do not we in the sea. Although I'm not sure that that's an issue, personally. I disagree. I think that it's okay to we in the sea. Jess says, not everything that rhymes is okay. This says, I love outdoors.
For your swimming costume, weeing in the sea. I mean, I suppose it depends. Maybe you're not wearing any swimming costume, because surely, anyway, maybe that's a whole different tangent we don't need to go down.
Jess talks about outdoor swimming at sunsets, and yes, when you're in the sea, you can see the horizon. Like, you always get to see the horizon when it's the ocean. That's the brilliant thing about the sea, and that's something we didn't get into. And Jess, yep, I am definitely into games that are pushing things slightly differently into jelly beans. And yeah, I'm using card games generally because, can't do everything. That's it. Can't do everything. Dutch Yoda says, which one is okay, weeing in the sea or seeing the wee? I mean, I don't think it's okay to wee where others can see, unless the other people have chosen to agree. Because if you wee in the sea and they do not agree, then your wee is a display which I don't think it should be.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And just to say, I think it's actually okay. But anyway, but let's move on to our main topic. And let's not go on too long because, I do definitely have Chris coming over and I do have to finish fonts and stuff. But I am excited to talk more about the soul of a game and what this actually means. So if you have any comments, if you have any questions about what the soul of a game is or any of these things, then please ask. And of course, Jess, we'll do we copy paste so that people see the links. Otherwise, the links are scrolling at the bottom for a little minute. But yes, where should we kick off? So should we use an example of Disarm the Base? Let's do some case studies. We've already had a case study of like the first thing where you're thinking about the way that the garbage is going round the sea and trying to clean it up, and that's the central mechanism. But then, is that the soul of the game? I mean, that's the inspiration. That's the thing that's inspired you. But then, almost instantly, it moved into the theme, the setting, which presumably is now the core of what you feel is.
See, that I think is really important. That these things do change over time. So you might start off saying, "Well, this is the catalyst. This is how you got in there. This is how you thought about it." But that's not necessarily what ends up being, the 10-second pitch. Because I think the soul of the game is quite often what you'd be saying during that 10-second pitch, which, of course, well, some people are really good at them, generally because they've practiced a lot, but most of us have to sit down and go, okay, right, what would I say to somebody to just say, okay, they're passing by, what's my, hey, come play this game, this is a game about whatever. What do you put on your banners? What do you put about,
A game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises.
See, I think actually you basically label the soul of your games, Bez, and you put it as the title. That's it. You've labeled the soul. You've sort of gone, hey, how do you define this? Because that's actually sometimes what we're talking about. We're saying, okay, there's this vague impression which I've got, because when I think, it's not completely in words. Sometimes it's more in pictures, sometimes it's in action, sometimes it's just in feelings. And I suspect most people are like that. I don't think there are many people who just think in full sentences.
I mean,
so how do you translate that?
A pitch is definitely different, and incidentally, a quick hello and good morning to Jay Foolsguard. Thank you for being here. But let's talk about my busy bargain bags for just a moment, because I think so. That started when I'm going to talk about the game known as a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. So in that game, it started off with my game jam, and Chris had written a bunch of things. I said to Chris, please write extra things. I'm not going to look at them, but I am going to read them all the night before so that I don't get too much of a chance to ponder it. But I did kind of want to double check it just before to make sure, okay, there's nothing inappropriate here, although Chris knows where the line is. But also I said, please put double the number that I'm asking for, and I'll cut it down by 50%. And so I cut down to 50%. That's, I thought, okay, these are the more interesting ones. And people can still go back and see the genesis of that game. When it was the noise of an animal, I was thinking, okay, what should happen? Maybe, yes, I was sort of inspired by Dixit. I was sort of inspired by Good Question and Doodles. Like, the noise of an animal. What's interesting about that? Okay, what if you had to identify it? What if someone was making the noise and other people have to draw the animal, like draw what it looks like? Maybe you have to make the noise and other people have to guess which of these animals it is, which is what it ended up being. And I think, I'm sure there were like other things that rushed through my head, but fundamentally it was about the noise of an animal, and that was the spark, but it has carried on. And noises, which now some people say the name. It's not a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes a noise. It's a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. So you are allowed to make multiple noises. I just want to make that clear. And you are allowed to use your full body and use your mouth multiple times, whatever. But it's about listening. It's about, the noises. But then when it was time to actually name the game, I was like, okay, what do I call it? There's a bunch of wee whimsical creatures, and Jess over here said, you know what? How about you just call it wee whimsical creatures? And so I thought, that's a fun idea. Maybe I should call it wee whimsical creatures. And then I asked people on Twitter, and someone said, oh, this is a lovely idea. And we had wee whimsical creatures, we had like mini musical monsters, we had other things, and someone said, oh, I like wee whimsical creatures, but maybe you could go even further down the Victorian thing of like just extending the name and explain what the name is all about. And Jess says, someone might change the name when they publish it to Yogi too. That would be a terrible name.
Voice Yogi. Yogi.
Yogi. That's a terrible name. If someone was coming to this expecting anything about Yogi, then they're going to be disappointed. Yogi Noises is going to be Yogi Jr., which I am going to actually start working on soon and then pitching to them. Maybe
there's going to be a Yogi Noises? Excellent.
Well, there's already an Abine Jr. Yeah. And there officially already is, although I think it's only in French. There's a small 8-card expansion pack with red cards, and the red cards make noises.
Oh, exciting.
But it's not about identifying anything, it's just about remembering to make the noises. Anyway, so I got to a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different. And I decided, okay, this is what all my games are going to be like. I pondered it for a while. I said, okay, they're all going to start a game about. That's kind of keeping my branding consistent. And then they're all going to be 10 words or more. I think that 10 is like a good minimum to say, wow, this is a really long name. Because if it's 9, then it's kind of just, oh, this is pretty long, but it's also, whoa, this is pretty long. I think 10 is the point where it's like, this is kind of ridiculous. But
double digits.
Exactly. But then it became a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips. And then now it's moving into and counting your turnips to make it more explicit what you do, because people said, oh, I started playing this game and I thought you wouldn't be allowed to take turnips at all. I thought there would be like hidden turnips, and then you've got to avoid these tiny hidden turnips, and all the while you're looking for one thing, you've got to also watch out for this hidden object. And that would be a great game. I think that's a really fun idea, but that was not what the game was. So I changed it So yes, it's the grabbing creatures that are totally different. That is the core of the game. It is speed non-matching. Because there's so many speed matching games. There's so many games where you flip over things and it's like, what's matching? Or grabbing cards and hey, I'm making sure that they all match. But how many speed non-matching games are there? I might have created the first one. I'm not going to say it for sure, but even if it isn't the first one, I'm still proud of it. And hopefully people still enjoy it. But yeah, that feels like the key thing. And now for one of my future games, which this one might take quite a bit longer. It's a game about strategically, or it's a game about selecting 7 cards that hopefully synergize. And that is the key part. It's synergizing. Like, that is the key word. And I think that even within 1 10-second pitch, there's so many things going on. Like, if we look at a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises, that's like almost 3 parts. There's wee whimsical creatures. Are they the core? Is it the identification that's the core? Is it the making noises part? Could all 3 be the core of the game? I mean, just as a genuine question, do you feel like if it was a game about hideous monstrosities and trying to identify them after someone makes noises, I think it probably would feel like the same game?
I think it would. I mean, so I think that in terms of priority, now, this might be something that somebody else might do differently, but I would say that the identification is probably top for me.
Really?
That it's, and I think that might be. And see, despite the fact that I have played this more often without taking account of the points than I have, when actually scoring, it's still that's how you get the points. So it feels like that's a real important thing. So I think it's the identification.
But the other way you get the points is by making a good noise. Like,
yeah, the noise comes second. The noise is the way you get the points, though. It's sort of the identification is the process. The noise is the thing that you're processing. The thing that you're counting, and then the wee whimsical creatures are the they're the catalyst for the noises or something. They're the things you're describing. So in my mind, that's kind of how it goes. The identification, then the noise, then the creatures. But I can completely understand that somebody else might go, okay, no, actually, it's the noise first and then the identification.
So do we need to maybe classify and say you've got the structural soul, which is how you incentivize people? Like here, I mean, this is a super simple game. It's not like a deep strategic, there's lots of webs going on, but the structural soul would be the identification, because that's what makes the game work, that's how you get the points, that's how it keeps together. But the emotional soul, like what you'll remember about the game, what gives you the biggest emotional payoff, what makes the game unique, the hook, that is the noises. And then the wee whimsical creatures, the fact that I mean, frankly, you have no idea how wee they are, but they're fairly whimsical. I try to keep them somewhat cute, but if they were genuinely as macabre and monstrous and horror-filled as they could be, that would influence the types of noises you'd make, rather than going, hey, ooh. It might be like, so.
Yes, if this was properly Cthulhu, not cute Cthulhu, but we're deeply scary Cthulhu, that would be a completely, that would feel quite different. And I think actually a lot of the feeling of this is not really wrapped up in either the creatures or the noise or the identification. Well, maybe it's more about the creatures, the feeling and the presentation and the sense of it. But I think, noise is really important. So maybe this is about whether you as an individual like to approach something from a mechanical point of view versus, whether you like to approach something from a feeling point of view. So,
like J. Guards, I mean, says
he's in the noise camp.
The noise making is the most important because it's what sets it apart from other games. And I kind of felt like that as well. But yeah, again, like that is the part that made the game worth making. Frankly, if you were identifying other creatures by saying words, then it would feel basically like, yeah, a slight variation on Dixit. I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth making, but it wouldn't have the same priority, I don't think. I mean, if we had identification versus by drawing, I think that would be quite interesting, like potentially. But like then, yeah, you'd probably want a doodle style thing where it doesn't reward you just for. Yeah, you could, like, if you had a game where someone made a noise, imagine, and then everyone drew pictures, and then afterwards everyone's voting on which creature best matches the noise, and the person who made the noise also votes on which of these best match that. I know the incentives are all wrong in that, like, but let's ignore that for the moment. And so you're just trying to spend 5 minutes drawing the creature that best matches the noise that was just made. I feel like that would feel more similar than a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone tells you 10 words.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's really difficult. So some of this is that different people see different things, that people, the way they approach the world is different. But it's also, yeah, what matters to that individual, whether it's a mechanic or whether it's a theme or whether it's the feeling that's kind of a bit of everything. Because so something that comes to mind now is that sometimes you get reminded of things by other things that are completely different, and so you go into, so yeah, you go into somebody's house and you go through their garden and you're like, wow, this garden is exactly like my friend so and so's garden, and it might actually be completely different in some of the core aspects, but you are reminded of it because it's got some of the same plants in it, or the garden gate is really similar and it just gives you the same feeling. Or maybe it's got loads of big plants and they're not even the same plants, they're not even the same family of plants, they're just, they're equally big and, give the same amount of shade. So sometimes things that can actually not be that similar can feel like they have very similar, they give similar effects. The outcomes are similar. The feeling they give you is quite similar. So I think that
And
there
of
can
course,
be
everything combines. I mean, there's a reason why I'm drawing my own font, because, and someone in a review said, "Oh yes, if you've already got a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify monsters who makes noises, then it's worth buying a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your turnips, because they are similarly drawn and they would look good on a shelf next to each other." And that's slightly weird, but I understand that, because they are both cute, and for sure, you wouldn't want all of the creatures from, because they're too similar, because they're deliberately meant to be too similar, so you sometimes have a match that you've got to avoid. But you could have like at least 3 of them going into a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify monsters' voices.
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, if we separate out the structural, what's holding it together, what's the structural integrity, like the foundation, but then we separate that out from what's the moment-to-moment hook, and I feel like the hook can almost be the same as the soul. Maybe, although having said that, I'm going to say that the hook is what draws you into the first game, and then the soul is what would keep you playing from game 10 to game 11. If you like the soul, you will keep playing from potentially game 20 or game 100 or whatever. And so the soul of Yogi, I guess, is pushing your limits on big body dexterity and being amused by your friends struggling. There's like
Yeah.
two sides of the same coin, and even though like I can't prioritize them, but they kind of go hand in hand. And when I look at, if I think of, okay, a game that is not published by either of us, okay, Carcassonne, I would almost say like the hook, the initial hook might be, okay, you're laying down a map, the map is ever growing. The soul of that game might be battling over features, dominance over features. I would say that's it. And then the mechanical foundation of that game would be that, because that's a bit more complex, maybe there's a little bit more in the mechanical foundation. I think that's the key thing is like to play one, possibly put a meeple on it. Like that's the thing that feeds into everything else. Like and you are unable to put a meeple on if it shares someone, but you can connect that later. And that mechanical foundation feels like it is almost the same as the soul of the game, which maybe suggests that it's a very mechanical game. Whereas
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Because there are games which have more of a mechanical soul than a themey soul, and then there are games which feel like they're very themey. I think so.
Like,
So one of the things I think,
can we go through like some games that we expect half the people listening to know? Like Solkin is like, there's a really strong hook, which is there's actual gears. You pull one and all of them go round. But then that feeds in to the soul of the game, which I think is kind of related, which is waiting. The soul of the game is the tension of how long do you wait for your things when you put them down, because as they go round, because of the gears, and the gears, the hook, facilitates that. And I think that's, again, the mechanical foundation of putting down and retrieval and the moments when things turn, that feeds into the soul. Whereas Seize the Power, I would say that's a very thematic game. Like, not just in terms of what people consider a board game theme, but in that it has a very strong literary theme, where the hook, I guess, is maybe the theme that it's about subjugation of power and discrimination, or maybe it's about the fact that you've got rules that anyone can break, but you need to pay the controller of the rule in order to break it. And that was actually the spark. And that was the thing that I had in my mind before I talked to Tiz. But then the thing that made it work was when I think I had the idea of, oh, wow, that works with discrimination because Tiz has just been talking about that. That sparked me, and okay, these things can go together. And it's, hey, would you like to work on this thing? And then it feels like, but the mechanical foundation of the game is in the discussion and trading.
Yeah. When you've got something like, so yes, I think that's really, that's really true. That sometimes you've got things where it's, the real spirit of it, the soul of it, the core of it has to do with one of the things you're doing. When you look at something like Pandemic, then it is so much a cooperative game. The whole thing is based around the fact that you've got to work together. And we tend to forget that, so because there are so many cooperative games out there, and because it's such a sort of, a widely used thing, we tend to forget that it's not necessarily the norm, and that, that it's not something that's been, historically there have been, far more competitive games, and I think actually that kind of, that fact that you're working together and you're crossing bits of the map and you're spreading out, and and then you've got to come back together and you've got to swap cards, yeah, of course Pandemic is about the theme of trying to defeat the diseases, But I think it's the way it's played that really, that feels like it's very close to the soul. But what I was going to say about some of that is that um, sometimes I think we make a mistake in thinking that the soul of a game is one thing. I think the soul is actually probably a compound, that it's that it's quite a close compound, but it's multiple things. It's like you've got a meal, you've got a really nice meal and it's a nice dinner and you've got all sorts of different things you're eating. Then as that's like the game. Then you bring out a cake, and let's say that the cake is the soul of the meal. It's not always going to be the soul of the meal, but let's say it is in this case. The cake is a compound. You're not looking at it and going, oh,
It could
well,
be the
it's the
soul of a
eggs.
wedding.
Yeah,
I mean,
it could be the soul of a wedding. But you're looking at it and you're like, okay, so I can see the ingredients. I can hear the ingredients which are, which are going into that. I can, see, okay, you've got the eggs and you've got the flour and you've got the, the sugar and everything, that's how you make cake, fine. But actually the cake itself, the compound, is the soul, not the individual ingredients.
And the simpler the game, maybe Jess says the soul of a wedding should be everlasting love. I do actually agree with that. But the soul of yeah. But
the soul of the marriage, maybe. The soul of the marriage is everlasting love. The soul of the wedding is stress.
Look, let's try to make it a little bit more practical. Because all of this, I think it's nice to have these terms, and I do like the terms that we've come up with, like the foundation, or like the mechanical foundation, the soul, which, I mean, are we agreed that the mechanical foundation is what makes the game work? The hook is what brings you into game number one. And then the soul is what gets you from like game number 1 to 2 to 3 to up until like game number 20, hopefully.
Yeah, it's what brings it all together, and I think it is, it is what gets you there, that you need to love the soul of the game, in order for it to work. Because if it's something where you're like, oh, sometimes you do come across a game like that and you're like, oh, this game has trick taking, for example. I should love it, but somehow it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with me. And, yeah, there are lots of games like that where you're just like, oh, I'm not quite sure that it's quite right for me. And that, I think, is where what you're expecting doesn't quite fit, and that means that the soul of the game is right for somebody else rather than you.
And I'm kind of feeling like what you said earlier on about it is a compound, it is a question of priorities, and sometimes, yes, those priorities intermingle. I think that's the key part. That it's not just a case of, okay, this is the one thing that changes. It's not, you could change everything else and it would still be the same game. That's never going to be true. With any game, if you change one aspect about it, it might be a marginally different game, but it is still going to be different. And if you remake Battlestar Galactica to play in half an hour, then you might feel like you've managed to capture what for you was the soul, but it is still going to be a very different game. And possibly some people might feel like the soul of the game requires the multiple hours of negotiation and revelation and feeling, oh my gosh, that person was lying or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, something like that, which is quite a long, complicated game, would be quite difficult to distill down. So I can see how you might be able to do it. I can see how somebody might say, okay, right, I get. I mean, not just the theme, but the way that you're like, oh, okay, is this person a Cylon? Is this person human? And that changing over time. I can see how it might be possible to distill that down into a much quicker game, but it would feel quite different, because the mechanics would have to be different. You can't have the same game but just speed it up. It doesn't quite work like that.
I mean, for me, I feel like One Night's Ultimate Werewolf, played repeatedly, captures the soul of werewolf, but does it in a way that's far more palatable to me. Whereas other people would disagree. Other people would say, no, the tension of being knocked out of the game is a big part of it. And having these multiple rounds, the slow revelation of information. And
yeah, I think I'm probably more on the slow side there. So werewolf is fun, to do the short version, the One Night Ultimate Werewolf, but I do like a good game of Mafia, which is basically the longer version of Werewolf, but that might be partly nostalgia as well.
So I think that if we look, I do actually like semantic arguments. I'm not going to lie. I know some people don't. I find it's interesting just to talk about, hey, what does this word mean? What should this word mean? And once we have words to describe what we're talking about, then we're able to better communicate. And I think that the terms mechanical foundation, it's quite self-explanatory. The hook and the soul, and like now we're deciding, okay, the soul is what's going to keep you going. But like, yes, the soul can be a mixture. I think the key thing for me, the key takeaway is to keep all this in mind. Like, you need these three things when you're making a game. You need the hook to get you interested, to get players interested. You need the soul to make it worth playing, because otherwise, if you play it and there's a hook and there's nothing else, what's the point? And you do need a mechanical foundation, because, I think there was actually quite a bit of maths behind and incentivization behind the structure of a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. If other people had done it slightly differently, I do believe, maybe this is egocentric, but a lot of people say, oh, why does it work that way? And I think that tells me that the normal way that people would jump to doesn't quite work as well, because if someone was hyper competitive, they need to be rewarded for being a super popular noise. And I think this is a good point to sort of wrap it up if we can. But
there was probably one point I wanted to mention, because we didn't mention it so much today, and we mentioned it a little bit, which is about some of this writing it down, and I just think that that's quite important, actually, because because it's not just that we're trying to communicate with other people. We're also trying to communicate with our past selves and with our future selves, when we're developing a game, and writing down might not be the right way. Some people might want to take pictures, for example, something that, something that speaks to you. But it is really important to have somewhere where you can look back and go, oh, did it work like that? Because sometimes you can find those brilliant little side shoots which become new games, as we were talking about yesterday. But also that helps you to kind of to zero in on it, to sort of go, okay, right, I was talking about this initially, and then I tried this, and then I tried this, and then I tried that, and actually this is me whittling it down and going, oh, these are the bits that make sense, these are the bits that work. And I think that communication with your past self and your future self is really important.
Yeah, 100%. And there were a few questions. Thank you for bringing this up that we haven't quite answered. So when should we write a vision document? It sounds like when you have something that you want to tell other people about, and other people does include your future self. And for me, I will make a prototype and then put the prototype in a bag, and putting that into the bag gives me the information for my future self. I'll see that and say, okay, yeah, that seems good. But yeah, it feels like vision documents fundamentally, it's about clear communication, and you've got a good idea. You don't want to lose that. Any more to add on
Absolutely.
that?
No, I think that's pretty much it. That when you've got something and you're like, hey, how can I save this for posterity? So, vision document, could be pictures, blogging about it, whatever. But yeah, absolutely, Bez.
I had this question written down, which is, what is the core? What is the best bit? Are these the same? If not, what's the difference? And I think we kind of answered that by turning it into, you've got the mechanical foundation, which is kind of the core that keeps the game working. But then, yeah, the best bit is, I think, the emotional soul of the game that will keep you playing. And they are sometimes the same and sometimes they're not. But the difference to me is that the soul is the bit that you get excited about, you get those moments of that are memorable, the moments that keep you coming back, whereas the core is the bit that kind of just makes it all work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at what point is it appropriate to determine this? When should we change the core of the game or remove a founding element?
See, yeah, yesterday we were talking about when we take out those bits that don't quite work, and I was talking about having to lose those lovely maps from Library Labyrinth, which I'm definitely going to have in a different game because it just didn't fit with that. And I think that you get to know that, so during the development process, you get to know that, and some of that is about listening to other people, because although it's your game that you're developing, then this is for other people to play with you. You're not just developing something that is a solo game just for you. You're hoping that other people will play it too. That is generally the point of the games. So it's like actually working out whether what makes sense in your head makes sense in other people's heads, and working out whether it all fits together. Because it could be that you've got, what could be two brilliant games, but they've kind of been mushed together. They've grown together in a funny way, and you need to kind of separate them and let them flourish independently.
Are these two games synergistic? Because that's what happened to Keyflower, where Richard Breeze and Sebastian Bleasdale had two games literally, and then David Brain was there and said, hey, did you realize that this bit from this and this bit from that, they work really nicely together? You should start working on a game and mash them up. And so it can go the other way. It can go into you've got two separate games and then you realize that you need to mash them up. Or it can go the opposite way where you absolutely strip it out. And it's definitely interesting about, I think that the mechanical core needs to speak to the soul and needs to support it. And when I look back to the development of a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your turnips, or beats, just is gone. But when I think back to that, I'm just thinking about how we tried so many ways of laying the cards out on the table, and then the first person to say, okay, these two are totally different, got those cards, or we had one card in the middle. We had different methods. And it was when I used the same mechanical foundation of Grabble, of putting everything into your hands. And that was kind of using a previous mechanical foundation and thinking, okay, because it's not really about the interplayer competition. And the soul of that game is about the satisfaction of avoiding the matches. And it's about, you do sometimes get caught out, and that is part of it. And so making your big pile and then passing it on, and then someone says, oh, look, these two creatures in a row, they both have a tail. And you're like, oh, how did I miss that? And it happens all the time. It happens like at least, I would say, for any given player, if like on your first time playing, like it will be like 40% chance you're going to mess up. And then within the first like 10 games that someone plays, like I think it's a good like 25% chance that you will mess up at some point. I've gotten better myself, but I still mess up like maybe 1 in 15 or something. It's like, how did it? but I'm definitely getting better. And Josie asks, at what point do you pitch the game to a publisher, or do you both self-publish? We do both self-publish. I think that this is a much bigger conversation than I want to have within just a couple of minutes. But to keep it tied to this, I would say once all of those elements are kind of working together, and it depends whether you're saying, hey, this is a done game, let's play it, and I'm interested in knowing if you would like to publish it. That's one type of pitch. But then there's also a speculative pitch, which is totally different, because I have emailed Gibson, said, hey, I've got this game, and I'd playtested it I think 2 times before I emailed them. And that was enough, because it was like, yeah, there is something here, people are enjoying it. There's a lot more mechanical and like a lot more finessing to do. But fundamentally, I know what the game is. I've worked out what the soul is. I've worked out what the hook is. The hook is deduction on the underground. The soul was that you're trying to give as little information to other people. And it's not about finding out information, it's about withholding information. So it's like a little twist on that. And then the mechanical core was like these cards that, that could have changed slightly, but the mechanical core feels like the least important thing out of that trifecta. And then I say, just to say, this is something I'm working on. And then they say, thank you very much, but we're not accepting any pitches until January 2023. So,
wow. They've clearly got enough on their plate already, but yeah.
Apparently they'd heard good things about me, which was really nice to hear, and are interested in meeting in January 2023, so that's good. But I'm clearly not going to carry on working on it for quite a while. Whereas, most personally, I do really like my business model of busy bargain bag. Once it sells out, if it's sold out quickly, do a Kickstarter, and after that, I've got a whole bunch of prototypes I can give to publishers. When I went to Toy Fair, I had, I think, 8 copies or 10 copies of each of my first 2 busy bargain bags. As I said, hey, this is a thing, and let me give it to you so that people might publish it. And it's different for everyone. Obviously, the more time and the later the game is, the less stressful that pitching process is going to be. But yeah, whatever.
But then the more time you've put into it, something which is a, completed game, you've put a huge number of hours into it, and you've play tested, you've done that. Whereas something which is a speculative thing, they as the publisher will have more control over how that develops. So it really depends on what they want and what you want. So a publisher which is a large publisher, when Ravensburger have those pitch days, then they're looking to see how far along you are, because they want to know whether that works for what they've got. But they do have developers as well. So it's not necessarily that there's one answer. It's just, that as long as it fits with you and the publisher, then it will work.
You need to have space for the publisher to put their own stamp on it. And sometimes that's just artistic. Like I said to a few people, if you chose to publish a game about wee whimsical creatures, it's entirely up to you. If you want to commission like someone else to do 120 creatures, I'm okay with that. But you might be better off using my line art, which people like, and then getting someone else to color that in. Because, I think that I'm a better at my line art than at my coloring in, generally but, let's
the game fits what you've done. What you've done art-wise fits the game that you've made. It's a really good match. So I could see how somebody might say, yeah, we'd like to come in and do all, entirely new artwork. But actually what you've got there is a good fit because you did it all yourself.
And also there is actually a lot of design work in the line art in terms of number of mouths, keeping the mouths different, and probably if I were to do it again, I would do slightly more beaks, or maybe make it so that beaks are always come with a normal mouth as well. That might be interesting. Because if there's only one creature with beaks, it feels too easy. But then at the same time, someone else said on Twitch tells me that it's not easy enough. So then maybe the real development would be having like some green cards, like just green backgrounds colored in creature, some yellow cards and some red cards. And green, it's just like a bunch of things that are completely different as they can be, super obvious, like different numbers of mouths, different types of mouths, like clearly different expressions. Whereas then you get a bit more subtle, and then people have to learn to do the feats and everything. But yeah, and hello, Leafta. It is lovely to have you. Who says, I like the game how it is. I'm so glad I own it. Had already so much fun at work with it. Thank you very much. That's lovely to hear. But at this point, it is already over an hour long, and I do want to wrap up. So I am going to say, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So, everyone watching, and also Jessica Metheringham, what are you up to? What are you planning to do? Is there something fun? Is there something that you need to get done? I'm personally going to probably finish up thickening the capitalized letters and the numerals here, and then I'm going to do a second version, which will be quite quick to draw, just with a bold pen, which will just be. So this will be the bold version, and that will be the thin version, because this one I'm thickening up. I'm also going to draw 2 more creatures for the cosplayers. I feel like maybe I want to draw creatures that look kind of human, but then they've got mouths attached with little strings. That might be quite fun, and they've got noise-making things attached with strings. It's kind of like a bad, not a bad cosplay, but it's a sort of a DIY cosplay, if you know what I mean. And that reminds me, for the original, before I even printed in a bind, I originally had little children in animal costumes, and I might want to bring some of them back. Maybe that's a good thing for a special cosplayer card. But yes, that's what I'm making. And then I'm going to draw some creatures to finish up Giftable. So that's going to be, and then Chris is going to be working with me, finish them up, and we'll send stuff up to Rob to get printed. And then I'll be going to Cha-Cha-Cha and Mambo tonight. Dancing, yay!
Yay, exciting. I am mainly doing lots of photo editing, or also the bits of the Kickstarter. So Library Labyrinth goes live on Kickstarter in, oh my goodness, it's like 2 weeks. 2 weeks! Which means, so basically, we've sorted out most of the
1st of March. Is it actually the 1st of March?
It's the 1st of March. It's the 1st of March.
If someone wants to have, give us a quick 30-second pitch. And do you have the Kickstarter link?
There's a pre-launch page, yes.
Send us the pre-launch page, and I'll put that into the private chat, and I'll put it into all the comments.
Excellent. So let me give you the quick pitch first, and then I will go and find that page. So, Library Labyrinth. This is a game where you are in a cursed library. There are literary monsters which have escaped from the books. You need to get the famous characters from the books, famous women from history, famous women from literature will leap out of the books and come to your aid to help get rid of these characters. So can you get Heidi teaming up with Joan of Arc to get rid of Dracula? Can you get Marie Curie teaming up with Harriet Tubman, helped by, think of another, Little Red Riding Hood to get rid of the Big Bad Wolf? Oh no, hang on, that doesn't work so well because Little Red Riding Hood already gets rid of the Big Bad Wolf. But someone like that, a Kraken or something. Alice in Wonderland, she can get rid of the Big Bad Wolf. I'm sure she can. So basically, that's the soul of the game. The actual game itself, there's a library made up of all of these tiles which flip and rotate, and the curse is still moving around there. So you're working together cooperatively. You've got to capture 6 monsters, put them back in their books. There are lots of different books, but the curse is going around, flipping tiles, rotating them. The shelves are moving. This pesky curse, it's really undoing all of your good work. So yeah, that's it. Race against time.
The curse monster. It's all about teaming up. That is the soul of the game.
That is the soul of the game.
Combining resources, 2 people, 2 characters, 2 players coming together to overcome one thing, because it's all about being better together.
Plus, cool women with amazing literary characters. You've got all sorts of amazing literary monsters. You've got, not just Draculas and Krakens and things. The Pit and the Pendulum is in there. The Forest of Thorns from Sleeping Beauty.
Aspect a hook, or would you say that that's part of the soul?
I think it's a part of the soul. I think it's also a hook, because there is an educational element to it as well. But also it's just that these are cool people, because I read quite a lot, and so my knowledge of books which are out of copyright is quite extensive, though basically stuff written before yeah, well, actually stuff written before 1900, then quite a lot of it I've read because I've read that. Stuff written in the last 30 years, nope, never heard of it. That basically explains my reading habits.
Everyone else is also up to lovely things. But yes, if you want to check out Library Labyrinth, we will get a link for you in just a minute. And please check it out and click the little remind me button. Jess says, I'm still working outside a cafe, kind of sweaty, it's getting dark though. J-Fool's Guard is planning to make a plan and also playtest later. Josie is doing some work admin stuff, then as a reward, doing some graphic stuff also for work. Yeah, I totally get that. Like, some work stuff is more fun than other bits. And yeah, we've also had a bit of side chats about the soul of a wedding. Yeah, the soul of the wedding being love versus cake. And Jess says, what do you love more? Me or cake? And come on, it's no contest. But Jess says, I take the cake to be my cakeful wedded spouse. And also apparently Jess likes how philosophical you are, Jess. Who apparently you wouldn't marry someone just for a cake, but maybe I would, says Jess. And yeah, apparently Thailand is fine for vegan food, so yeah, hooray. You can definitely get it around, but yeah, that's never great if vegan food costs more than meat food. It really would. But I was saying to, like, we got these 2 pizzas on Monday, and myself and one of my guests had one, but then the third guest was vegan, so they bought their own pizza, and they said, oh, I'm a bit annoyed because why is it always never vegan food that's reduced? And it's just a question of percentage. Like, if 10% of the store is vegan, then you've got about 10% chance of any reduced item being vegan. But yeah, I can totally get that. So yeah, if it's mainly foreigner food, and also all the sugar stuff that Thais like to eat. But yes, let me put in these 2 links. So you've got the Kickstarter and Coop.
Yeah, so you can actually go and play Library Labyrinth completely for free through your browser, which is great. Doesn't work very well on touch screens, but as long as you've got a mouse, it works brilliantly.
And pardon me, recap and wrap up before we finish up. I think the key thing that we talked about is that the sea is brilliant. And probably it's okay, we can agree, if you want to wee in the sea. But if you wee in front of me, don't do that unless we agree. Because if you display your Wii to someone that's free, that seems something with which I would disagree. So, yeah. To see the Wii... Anyway,
No.
it's all about consent and kind of... But yeah, if you go into the sea, frankly, you're expecting a minute amount of human Wii, let's be honest. If you... And we also talk about splitting up everything into mechanical foundation, the hook and the soul. That was... And I think that's the key thing. And yeah, keep changing it. And I do apologize, I need to sort out this plug. Yep, it's his plugging. It's his running again. Boom, 4%. And
ooh, that was low.
It's gotten lower before, but
Bez lives life on the edge.
I think that it's been a really lovely chat, and I think that the key thing is that all three of these things need to work well together, and sometimes the mechanical foundation is the hook. Like with Jenga, I think that the hook, the soul, and the mechanical foundation are all basically the same thing. It is a supremely simple game, let's be honest, and it's a wonderful game because all three of those things combine so well. Yeah. And so I think that the simpler the game is, the more likely it is that all three of those will be the same. The more complex the game, the simpler the game, the more likely it is that you'll be able to get rid of everything that is none of those. But all three of them are needed. And with a more complex game, you might start to need secondary mechanisms and extra bits and pieces. But yeah, it's been a lovely chat. Thank you, everyone. If you want to check me out, I'm Stuff by Bez everywhere, Instagram, yada yada. Check me out, stuffbybez.com/streams. What am I streaming about tomorrow? Oh, Dina is not coming on tomorrow because of personal reasons. Let me change that. That is 545. So if anyone has a suggestion for a topic, then I will gladly do it. But yeah, for now, it will be whatever I decide tomorrow morning. Friday is a quick 5-minute chat. Saturday, I will be streaming from a convention. Sunday, I will be probably talk about what I've playtested, and I'm going to playtest soon because it's another all-day playtest. And yeah, next week we're going to have Rob Fisher about puzzles and Alan Paul talking about playtesting. And so then I might possibly be going to Bastion if I can sort out money. I'm trying to work out if I can afford it. That's a convention that there's no publishers, there's no real trading. I mean, if I take stuff and people want to buy it, no one's going to say, whoa, Bez, why did you do that? But it's definitely not the kind of place where you have a stand at. It's the kind of place where you get up and go to bed and then wake up and you're already within the company of lots of people, and then you go down at 8 a.m. and there's people playing games, or you can go to bed at 1 a.m. and there's still like a couple of people playing games and you only need to go up one flight of stairs to go to bed. It's lovely.
Is there cake? The important question is there cake?
Only if people bring it.
Ah, well, that's fine. People equals cake, surely. Sounds good.
Yeah, share, spread the word, and talking, where's my... Yes. And of course, as well as all the Descent games, Screen Top, and the Kickstarter link, I'll paste it in once more. Do check out...
Come talk to me on Twitter. Mainly on Twitter. That's where I am mainly. But there's also Disarm the Base, which was the first game. There's librarylabyrinth.com, which is great. Go there. It's got links to everywhere else. But also go to descentgames.com because you can work out how to buy things like roll and color cards, which are lovely, exciting things. You got that on the front. You got instructions on the back. But yeah, come talk to me on Twitter. That's where I normally hang out.
And Josie asks me to do a stream about all the different conventions. I mean, yeah, I could see that, like a quick run through of literally all the conventions I've been at. That's like, 15. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable doing like a top 10 because, I've got personal relationships with the organizers and that would feel a bit sad. but I'll do it by yeah. I mean, I know that top lists kind of do really well, so I'll probably find out some way of doing that. But yes, yeah, sure.
A round table top list. So not like a top, so not like a which you prefer, but a what's best for each, maybe. So it's just, if you like, I don't know, if you like this sort of thing, go to this one. If you like this sort of thing, go to that one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like what Josie is saying, like the different fields. Like if I give everyone like an award, like I'll give them between 1 and 3 awards, and I'll say like, this is like the Festival International de Jeu is best for pram storage. Seriously, I know it sounds like a small thing, but that's a big deal for mums.
Yeah.
Like if you want to go and take, small tiny toddlers along, that is the best one for small tiny toddlers. It's got an entire
that is
top
important.
floor.
Important to know that.
And yes, it's also anyway, I will do that. I'll give them all awards, and I like that thing. So I'll just organize them vaguely by when they pop up in the year, but I might not be able to remember everything I've been to. So I'll just do like whatever I can remember, and I'm going to in the forthcoming year. But yes, that will be about 8 things. So yes, I will tell you all about them. And that will be that. For now, thank you, everyone. Thank you, most importantly, Jess, but also thank you, everyone in chat, for lovely conversation. It has been super lovely. I'm just going to say bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song to do. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go to do bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. I just realized I forgot to do the question of the day, but I'll do it next time. But bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. And Jess, it was lovely to have you. Bye, Jess. Bye, Josie. Bye, J Foolsguard. Bye, Oda. And bye, other Jess. Bye-bye.